unlikely or unhinged. Well, it wasn't last time I spoke to David Davis. David, there is all the fact we have got an election in the United States, and we've got one here, of course.
Yeah.
It's going to feed into this rhetoric, isn't it?
It is, but that being said, I think he's got a point.
Right.
To be frank, I mean, I woke up about 4 or 5 weeks ago and thought exactly the same thing. In fact, it was Trump's election being announced or his winning of his primary being announced on the Today programme, and I thought, you know, I've never known in my adult life a time when the world's so unstable. And bear in mind, I've lived through Cuba, you know, the Cuban crisis. I was at parachute school when the Russians invaded Czechoslovakia. I thought I was going to be dead in 3 months. I mean, you know, so there's been a lot of times in the past. And the thing always to remember about all of this, however, is that world wars happen despite predictions, not because of them. They happen when things just go wrong in the wrong way. So you've got today the deaths of those American soldiers in Jordan, by Iran. You've got the Houthis, Iranian sponsors.
Why are they bombing Americans in Jordan? I mean, what's that got to do with it? Is it just to create instability?
Yes, I think it is. I think Iran basically wants the more instability possible in the Middle East, because, you know, they're Shias. They want to increase the arc of Shia domination. Bluntly, we fed into that with the Iraq War. The last Iraq War made it easier, and they're still turning this wheel to try and make more and more instability. Now, that's got all sorts of dangerous knock-on effects, as you say, in an election year. How are the Americans going to respond to this sort of thing? Are they going to dial it up? Are they going to make it? Are they going to hit back? In which case, you can see it going up another notch. So I think there's a point, and you're right about the war hawks, the sort of war horses like me. But they've got a point too, and their point is this: that after the fall of the Soviet Union, we claimed, quotes, the peace dividend. I always think it's a terrible metaphor. Actually, a better metaphor was we cancelled the insurance because we thought the house wouldn't burn down, you know? Unfortunately, houses do burn down. And our army's too small. The whole of NATO is too small now to stand up to an attack. And what stops wars? The other side thinking they won't win. You know, that's what stops.
And David, we know they could be here already, but it's been widely reported, it's in the papers again, that we're going to have American nuclear missiles back on our soil in Suffolk anytime soon. Far more powerful than the bombs that we were used to destroy Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Hundreds of times, absolutely. And but
is that good?
It probably is the right thing. I mean, look. During, you know, back when I was younger, when I was involved in these things, you know, they used to talk about mutually assured destruction, which of course the acronym for that is MAD. Yes. And it seems mad, it feels mad, but it actually gave us 50 years of stability. You know, after the Second World War, when everybody had these weapons. Terrible thing, but nobody's going to press the button because, you know, actually world leaders, even if they're Putin or Trump, don't want to die themselves. That with the consequence of a nuclear war. They might send young men off. I mean, leaders of all sorts, from Putin to, I don't know, pick your own prime minister, do send young men off to war, but it's not very risky for them.
Were you surprised this week by the reaction with this public debate that started around the notion of conscription of young people, and how much pushback there was, and how much it kind of raised awareness of the fact that we've raised a whole generation to view our sort of empirical past as bad and as war as bad, and also this sense that we've got this generation of individuals who, to some extent, are a little bit narcissistic. The idea that they will selflessly give their life or go and murder somebody else on behalf of a Prime Minister they don't feel connected to. It really brought it into focus for me. Yeah,
but the issue here is, will we be forced to it? That's the problem. Not that we want to do it. I mean, there are nations in the world. I mean, Sweden's just reinstated a form of conscription, social service and/or conscription. Switzerland has got conscription. Neutral nations, by the way, up until recently anyway. And Switzerland had a survey, I think last year, in which 73% of their population wanted to continue with conscription. So gives you a measure. But what we have to do is find another way of improving our ability to defend ourselves. And what, for me, that means probably is, you know, massively increasing, like 10 times increasing the number of reserve forces.
Because they're depleted to the point of hardly having any.
There were about 30,000, I think. I mean, it's all 20,000. It's tiny. And, you know, bear in mind, they only cost a quarter of what a regular kill a soldier.
Yeah.
But
And
also
then they're gonna be prepared.
diplomacy. Like, this is the one thing that's missing from a lot of this conversation around war at the moment is the idea that we've given up on diplomacy with some countries. We just don't bother now. We've all just got a tool up and just make them think we're bigger than them.
No, I mean, diplomacy is important. I used to be a Foreign Office Minister. Diplomacy is massively important. But if you've got no force, you won't be able to exercise any diplomacy with the leaders of Russia, Iran, China, and so on. I mean, diplomatic activity will not stop the Chinese invading Taiwan. The fear of American response the Chinese invade Taiwan. That's been the case for decades. And, you know, that's, for me, that's the biggest frightening thing, you know, a slightly bonkers leader of China.
Who's very ambitious.
Very ambitious, and of course it's a tradition. It's been going on. They've claimed it ever since the creation.
And I can hear our viewers at home going, well, if they do, it's got nothing to do with us. That's to do with China and Taiwan.
I mean, you know, look, if your viewers at home perhaps should read the history of the First World War, you know, which started with one man being assassinated.
Yeah, Archduke Ferdinand.
Spread right across, you know, and even a year before, our British statesmen saying, if there is a war, we don't need to get involved. Well, look what happened.
Yeah.
One of the worst wars in
Ever.
Stay with us, David. Moving on to things a little closer to home at the moment. Disposable vapes, they're set to be banned in Britain as part of plans to tackle the rise in young people vaping and to protect children's health.
It's part of the Prime Minister's plans, which he's going to talk about today, to phase out smoking. The Tory MP Liz Truss, she was our Prime Minister for 49 days, says it's an unacceptable extension of the nanny state.
But new data shows the number of children vaping in the last 3 years has tripled. Joining us now is the Director of the UK Vaping Industry Association. Very good morning, Dan Marchant. Good morning to you, Dan. This is great news, isn't it, that we're going to be banning these disposable vapes at the very least?
Good morning. I wouldn't say it was great news, personally. Of course, I think I should start out by saying, of course, children shouldn't be getting their hands on any type of vape, be it a disposable or a refillable vape. That in itself is a problem. And of course, we'd support sensible measures to prevent youth access. But unfortunately, I think just an outright ban doesn't sort of take into the nuance of the situation and could have some really, really negative unintended consequences. Such
as what?
Well, they are probably the most successful smoking cessation product that's on the market at the moment. And there's 1.5 million adults currently using them to improve their health. And actually, research from UCL came out last week, which says that they're particularly worried it could cause, I think, 1.2 million adults to relapse back into smoking, which obviously would be a public health disaster. But also, we've already got a really huge and thriving black market in the UK. And of course, without active and effective enforcement, there's a real danger that we'd be just pushing consumers, and unfortunately, children will also be able to use the black market, because if these people are willing to sell an illegal product, unfortunately, there's a big correlation that they're also willing to sell them to our kids, which is outrageous.
But Dan, they're already using the disposable vapes, that's what we know. And of course, vaping has been great to try to woo people off cigarettes and nicotine, but it's also drawing hundreds of thousands of young children into vaping in the first place. That is not good. It's a gateway to tobacco. It's a gateway to all sorts of other issues.
Well, no, it's absolutely not good, but I don't think just banning the product is the solution. Like I say, there's already a large black market for the disposable vapes. Just saying that they're banned won't get rid of that.
Okay,
actually,
so here's
what we've been trying to engage the government with for years now is to introduce a retail licensing scheme, which actually would then create a huge amount of funding for trading standards to be able to go out and do proactive enforcement of the age laws, because it's already illegal to sell these products to children. And so really, I think the outrage needs to be focused on the retailers, criminals.
Well, there's a solution to this, Dan. There's a very, very easy solution for this. If it is genuinely a medicinal product to help people quit smoking, it should be prescription only. You should be able to maybe get it from your pharmacist to make it easier, because you can't get an appointment with the GP anyway. Pharmacists and GPs get it on prescription, and then it will do what you're talking about, and it won't be available next to the sweets in every shop on the high street.
I understand, but there's a few negative points with that. One, I don't think your GP is going to be overly happy about having to give out 4.7 million appointments to the current adults that are using vapes. It would be a huge strain on the NHS. You don't need a prescription to go and buy Nicorette or gum or patches. You don't need a prescription to buy cigarettes. So actually, we shouldn't be creating undue barriers to a smoker that is looking to switch, because all we're going to do is exacerbate the problem of smoking, which, as we know, kills 220 people a day in the UK.
OK, thank you, Dan. Dan Marchant there from the UK Vaping Industry Association.
David Davis, have you ever smoked, David?
No.
No, you're far too
Not
healthy.
a cigarette.
Let's not go.
We won't press you on that.
Or anything else. Or anything else.
Yeah, I thought so. You and I have known each other a long time. Of course, vaping is very helpful for people to get them off fags, but we know it is getting thousands, hundreds of thousands of kids into vaping, and it's designed to do that.
And by the way, I should just say at the beginning that, being lectured on what's conservative by Liz Truss.
Yes, I wondered what you thought
probably
about
got Margaret Thatcher spinning in her grave.
Yes.
Because Margaret was always clear, common sense first.
Yes.
And here you've got something which on the one hand has a health benefit. I don't agree with prescription, by the way. That's too intrusive, but there are better ways. Has got a health benefit. On the other hand, is a dangerous entry drug almost.
Of course it is.
And that was a little bit, how can I say, disingenuous from the leader of the trade association.
He's making money out of it.
Of course. Because some of these vapes are obviously designed for children. Look at the flavours, look at the colours.
They've got Elf and Geek bars. Elf and Geek. I mean, they are aimed specifically
Children branding.
at children.
Yeah. So I think I got a lot of sympathy with what Sunak's trying to do, and I think we'll debate the detail when it comes to the House. But I think if somebody had taken an attitude like this to smoking 50 years ago, there'd be a lot of people still alive today.
Yeah.
And so that's where we are. And just saying, oh well, it's unconservative is just bonkers.
Yeah.
It's I just want to press you on that, the prescription issue, to some degree, because do you remember when they first arrived on the scene, vapes, and it was a celebration that they were going to get people off cigarettes, and it was wonderful and fantastic, and they have done a good job of that. But all they've done is introduce a whole generation of kids to nicotine who wouldn't have liked to smoke a cigarette, but they quite like a watermelon flavour vape that they can puff on.
It's cool to vape.
In the toilets of the school, and the school can't smell it, the parents can't smell it. Yeah. Prescription only, David?
No, I don't think so. I mean, look, what I don't agree with is this line, oh, well, it'll create a black market. I mean, you maybe got to move them to being sold, like cigarettes, behind the counter, not in front of the counter. So you basically repress the marketing campaigns. But don't let the best be the enemy of the good, And we don't... I mean, in that respect, I would agree with Truss. You don't want more natty state than you need to have. What you do is want to precisely, or as close as you can get to precisely the right amount of control. That is telling them they can't market on the front, they can't do away with disposables, and make a very severe criminal offence to sell it to children. Very severe.
David, you wrote, rushing a lot of things out, you wrote a very interesting piece in the Telegraph at the weekend saying bring out of retirement Supreme Court judges to deal in 3 months with all these cases for the post office, sort out the compensation, but that would also potentially catch the handful who may have actually been pinching money.
It started with a telephone call to me from one of the postmistresses saying, I don't want to be declared innocent
in a group.
In a group.
I agree with that.
We started off, I don't want a royal pardon.
She wants to be cleared specifically, doesn't she?
She said, I was convicted in the court. I would want to be exonerated. Now, she's actually been exonerated, this one, but I want to be exonerated in the court. And of course, everybody said, oh, well, it can't be done, it takes too long. Well, the judges have got a responsibility here too. I mean, they were part of this massive miscarriage.
They were.
Some of them were very honourably on the right side, but they were part of it. So they should actually adjust. And all it takes, 3 retired, you've got lots of Supreme Court judges who've retired. Find 3 are still compass mentors, still smart. Give them a court room and say, here you are, 3 months. And bear in mind, the vast majority of them will be very simple because there'll be horizon-only evidence. If it's horizon-only evidence, then it's a clear-cut case. If there's... One of the complaints to one of the law officers to me was, oh, but the post office have lost the files. I said, well, in that case, it's very simple. Innocent till proven guilty. If you've got no files, they're innocent. So then you're left with a small number where, did they nick the pension? That sort of thing, because otherwise... Your newspaper in a year's time is saying this person stole somebody's pension and got £600,000 tax penalty. Well, you don't want that either, do you? So I think it's doable. We're going to have a row about it, obviously, and argue about it. You know, if the government won't go with it, then I'll support their current proposal. But this is better.
And the chairman of the Post has been sacked by Kevin Badenoch, Henry Staunton. He shouldn't get a penny payoff, should he?
No, he shouldn't. No, he shouldn't. I mean, look, there's become a habit. Actually, even with ministers, Nadine Dorris yesterday had to give back whatever it was, 17,000. I'm astonished we keep giving people redundancy payments. Yeah. When they're not redundant, they're fired.
Fired because it's no good.
you know, if I were fired, I wouldn't expect a redundancy payment. Actually, when I resigned as Secretary of State, I didn't get redundancy. I'm too old.
Yeah. So no money for the post office chairman.
No money for the post office chairman. I don't. You know, I think if you are if you're dismissed, it's not payoff time. It shouldn't make your bank happy.
We need to end it there, David. Unfortunately, never long enough.